everyone, welcome back to Thoth Thursdays. Today's topic, chat, today's chat is all about Lady Frieda Harris. This is not going to be a long video because I studied so much with the last one for it not to be a long video either, and the study has been so good for my soul, but I feel like some of the topics that I've been diving into have been great for me, but they don't really allow for dialogue to happen. They don't really open up. Yeah, the topics don't really open up in a way that make for good videos, like Kabbalism. I feel like I studied a lot with that, and then it just, not a dud, because I love coming on here and just talking, but I feel like there was so much more that could have been said that I don't know, seemed irrelevant at the time. Anyway, the point is that everyone knows that the Thoth art is iconic. Like, when you think of the Thoth deck, you really think about the art. And Milo Duquette talks about the art in his book. A lot of other Thoth books that I have talk about the art. And some even go into a little bit of information about Lady Frieda Harris. But I wanted to explain how I kind of think of it. I know for certain that the art is what drew me to the Thoth. Now at first, I started out, if you have you watched any of my other videos, you know I started out with the Rider-Waite deck. I learned and grew with tarot with that deck. And then I don't know how I found the Thoth. It wasn't from a video, I know, even though I was pretty versed with tarot on YouTube at the time of buying this. So it wasn't like a video, it was maybe a blog or something on Instagram, and I was like, oh my god, what is that deck? And that was all she wrote. And I realized that the art is probably what drew me in as a creator. As a painter, my love does heavily lie with the art and the colors, and I mean there's so much in the art that upon first grabbing the deck I had no idea how in-depth the art was, how scientific the colors were, how symbolic all the symbols were. To me they just seemed like a pack of cards that were drawn by a wonderful lady that just had inklings about the cards, like who knew, right? And once I started studying, I realized that's not the case. There's a lot of creativity and science behind the deck, and I love that about this deck. I will say that the Thoth deck was intended to be like, it was intended by Crowley to let's just make a traditional deck. And it was Lady Frieda Harris that convinced Crowley, you need to put some of your magical workings in here. You need to put some occultism in here, the Theoloma in here, Kabbalism in here. And after so much persistence, apparently, according to their correspondence, Crowley was like, okay, fine. But then once she did that, she opened a can of worms, because then Crowley really started having ideas about what each card really means, what each card should look like, and what was supposed to be a 6-month project turned into a 5-year project. A project that would ultimately not even come to fruition before they both died. So, now I kind of think of Lady Frieda Harris, she wasn't a noble by blood, I'll say, but she was noble by marriage. And so I feel like she was kind of a socialite by marriage, maybe. So she was probably one of those Molly Brown type people that knew money, but had so many friends because of the charm. And I feel like she probably knew a lot of people, and she had maybe some influence, and that's how she was able to convince Crowley. I mean, can you imagine this lady that has all this? I imagine her just being boisterous and flamboyant almost, having been a new money socialite, and convincing the beast, let's draw some tarot cards. And she was already drawing in studying with Anthroposophy, which is a Rudolph Steiner philosophy of spiritual discovery according to Rudolph Steiner, spiritual discovery needs to be obtained through intuition, imagination, and insinuation. All the I words. And I think that what that means is that when you make a spiritual development in your spiritual practice, okay, whatever that may be for you, it has to be internal, using your active imagination and those first feelings, that's your intuition, and your insinuation, like your instincts. So I feel like using all of those for spiritual development is what Rudolph Steiner's Anthroposophy is all about. An article I read said that Harris believed that imagination has the power to extend the limits of nature, like the laws of nature, in order to forge it into reflective capacity. So I feel like she believes that using the active imagination, astral travel, and using her intuition and her instincts, she was able to map the reality and conjure, I'll say, manifest the reality she wanted. She actually believed in that. And I think that that plays a lot in the deck. I don't necessarily think that it was all Crowley's doing either. A lot of the correspondence that are back and forth between Crowley and Harris, some's lost in time. Some of it we don't know. There's months in between, and you know that they probably didn't go months without talking. So, especially in the creation of this. So it kind of makes you wonder what was said, which in like what we don't know. So it could actually be Crowley telling her, no, I don't like this, no, I don't like that, which is what most of the correspondence is him telling her. But what if she had her own things? If you look at some of her works of art prior to this, they're really similar to how she draws, in her other workings. So I feel like maybe she had a lot of influence on the cards as well, not just Crowley's ideas. Another thing that went into the deck that all the books that I've read talk about is projective geometry. It's like a mathematical approach to art. The discovery of perspective. So, like, in art class when you're getting taught perspective and you have to do that thing that's like a triangle and it's like a road, and then you have to draw bigger to smaller things to kind of show how the perception is in art and how it needs to be on a 2D surface. That was like my favorite subject in art class. But she added a lot of this in the deck, I think because of the perspective. In one of my very first Thoth videos is a video about movement and how I show some of the cards and how they seem to be jumping out at you, seem to be moving, seem to be in some sort of movement. And I think that that is in this deck. I think that her main goal was to show the initiate. Okay, I'll say the initiate because I kind of feel like they didn't make this deck for everybody. I feel like maybe they made it for their magical orders, for the people in their magical orders. And so I feel like the purpose of the deck is to show them these figures are in movement. And like the Fool. I mean, I think I saw the Fool in here. Now, as far as geometry goes, we all know that that's meaning like shapes. And I have a whole video, a sacred geometry video, that was fantastic to shoot. But there's so many like geometric shapes in here, but it's not the shapes that's the projectedness of it. It's the nets. And it's the magician card. Where's the magician card in here? Like the hangman. It's the nets and the... Okay, so like this in the magician. He's standing on this precipice, this egg of consciousness, right? This, I'll say this consciousness and source. He's standing on there, but then the nets behind him, it does seem like he's coming up like this. Like one of those, like stage presence. Like he has stage presence because he's coming out of, they call them toasters, right? Where those things pop up and they can either go slow or fast. And you're on a platform that is getting risen up to the stage platform. And I feel like the fact that they did this in the magician card, it kind of ties it into stage magic for me, because that's what you would do in stage magic, is have all these elements for illusionment and like visual effects. And I feel like that's kind of a tie-in between all the magicians we know in the tarot. So the projective geometry in this, you can tell he's moving, you can tell he's moving up, and you can tell he's moving this way. And I think that that's the goal of the projective geometry in the deck, is the movement. And I believe it's executed beautifully in here. Now, a lot is not said on Harris as far as like any other than Crowley. I know that in a couple of articles it says that she was like visiting him when he was near death and he didn't know who she was. And I can just imagine what kind of person she was, even though we don't have a lot of references to her. And I feel like maybe she could have been a lot like Pixie, a very creative socialite type of a person that held such esteem for the magical order that she was in. Not so much Pixie, but Frieda Harris, having been a member of the Golden Dawn. And coincidentally enough, she didn't go through all of the initiatory lineups, I'll say. She started out as a 4th initiate. So she bypassed all of that just by helping Crowley make the deck. So that already says a lot about maybe how much she had learned making the deck. And I can kind of like see student-teacher things happening with Crowley and Harris, where she's sitting at her easel or whatever, and she's really embodying the archetypes and really getting stern talking to from Crowley. But she really probably learned a lot in painting the deck and in the correspondences with Crowley. But I feel like with her not having any magical background prior to her being in the order, because that's what it says, is that she didn't have really any magical background, she was starting from the ground up with this. So this was kind of like her initiatory act. And I think that's fascinating. And I think that her work will continue to be iconic. And I don't think that the Thoth deck will go out of print. Not totally. Because of the art. I think it's the art. Not so much all the other things that we've studied. I think that is a lot of it. But even if you weren't a magician, if you were just trying to read tarot, and you didn't really want to dive and study with it, I still think it's a magical deck, and that people are going to recognize that, and that people are going to find the art fascinating and iconic no matter what they choose to do with the cards themselves. So, like I said, this was not going to be a long video, but I wanted to come on and give some love to Lady Frieda Harris, because I feel like as a deck lover and as a Thoth lover in general, I use this deck as a study tool, as a tool for my magical practice, for a tool for scrying. I use it for so much more than just tarot readings, but it is the art that drew me in, and it is the projective geometry that pulled me in, and it is the way she used color, even though she was instructed on how to do that. It was all of that tied into one, and I think that having this video to shout all of that out was necessary in a Thoth playlist. So, if you want to check out some more on Lady Frieda Harris, I'll leave some links below to some books. I know that Milo has a whole chapter devoted to her and his correspondences, and a couple of articles about their correspondences in general, and I'll leave those below. I hope to see you on another Thoth Thursday. Much love.